Good evening again, Mom and Don and Linda. We continue in Romans. We are resuming tonight at chapter 10, verse 5. And so here we are in this third section, chapters 9 through 11. The gospel fulfills God's promise to Israel. And chapter 10, Paul is focusing on Israel in the present. Covenant relationship based on laws that now is transformed through Christ to a new covenant family based on faith. What some of the reformers have called the move from law to gospel. And Paul doesn't quite use that, but they read that into Paul. So, friends, we read beginning at verse 5 in chapter 10. I'll be reading from the left-hand column from the New Living Translation. And in the right-hand column, you see the text of the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition for our comparisons as we read. We'll up the timer, and we'll jump into our reading. Romans chapter 10, verse 5. For Moses writes that the law's way of making a person right with God requires obedience to all of its commands. But faith's way of getting right with God says, don't say in your heart, who will go up to heaven to bring Christ down to earth? And don't say, who will go down to the place of the dead to bring Christ back to life again? In fact, it says, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart. And that message is the very message about faith that we preach. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. And as the scriptures tell us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord who gives generously to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scriptures say, "How beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring good news." But not everyone welcomes the good news. For Isaiah the prophet said, "Lord, who has believed our message?" So faith comes from hearing. That is, hearing the good news about Christ. But I ask, have the people of Israel actually heard the message? Yes, they have. The message has gone through the earth, and the words to all the world. But I ask, did the people of Israel really understand? Yes, they did. For even in the time of Moses, God said, "I will rouse your jealousy through people who are not even a nation. I will provoke your anger through the foolish Gentiles." Interesting that the New Living Translation uses the word Gentiles here, but the NRSV doesn't. Interesting. Verse 20. And later Isaiah spoke boldly for God, saying, "I was found by people who were not looking for me. I showed myself to those who were not asking for me." But regarding Israel, God said, "All day long I opened my arms to them, but they were disobedient and rebellious." Chapter 11. So I get this. I want it. Okay. Chapter 11. So consulting back here, now we move from Israel in the present to Israel in the future, with the question, is God done with Israel? No. Chapter 11. I ask then, has God rejected his own people, the nation of Israel? Of course not. I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, and a member of the tribe of Benjamin. Remember, Paul likes to throw those credentials around. It was the Benjaminites were considered elites, a small tribe, one that could easily be overlooked for their smallness. And so there was no small amount of the proud mentality among the Benjaminites. And Paul lives into this. I mean, he wholeheartedly embraces this in a handful of places in his writings. Verse 2, no, God has not rejected his own people, whom he chose from the very beginning. Do you realize what the scriptures say about this? Elijah the prophet complained to God about the people of Israel and said, "Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." Interesting thing. Paul reminds us, Elijah isn't the only one to oftentimes feel like he's all alone. We can all be a little dramatic sometimes, can't we? Verse 4. And do you remember God's reply? He said, "No, I have 7,000 others who have never bowed down to Baal." It is the same today. For a few of the people of Israel have remained faithful because of God's grace, his undeserved kindness in choosing them. And since it is through God's kindness, then it is not by their good works. For in that case, God's grace would not be what it really is, free and undeserved. So this is the situation. Most of the people of Israel have not found the favor of God they are looking for so earnestly. A few have, the ones God has chosen. But the hearts of the rest were hardened. As the scriptures say, God has put them into a deep sleep. To this day, he has shut their eyes so they do not see, and closed their ears so they do not hear. Likewise, David said, "Let their bountiful table become a snare, a trap that makes them think all is well. Let their blessings cause them to stumble, and let them get what they deserve. Let their eyes go blind so they cannot see, and let their backs be bent forever." Did God's people stumble and fall beyond recovery? Of course not. They were disobedient. So God made salvation available to the Gentiles. But he wanted his own people to become jealous and claim it for themselves. Now, if the Gentiles were enriched because the people of Israel turned down God's offer of salvation, think how much greater a blessing the world will share when they finally accept it. That, friends, is where we're going to pause. And next time we pick up Romans, we'll resume here at chapter 11, verse 13. Have a blessed evening, dear friends. Peace be with you.